I'm Debbie Bell Hosking for FinextraTV at the SBS Summit 25 in Paris, and I'm joined by Andrew Steadman, Chief Product Officer, SBS. So Andrew, welcome to our Summit studio.
Hello, it's nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you. And of course, you've been spending a lot of time on the Summit floor, gauging responses. So the first thing I want to ask you about is challenges, because we always talk about challenges at these events and what's driving us forward. So what would you say are the challenges that CTOs are solving for financial institutions?
Yeah, well, I think at this point in time, with the pace of change of technology, they're really focusing on how they can start using new technology in the context of the environments they've got. I mean, we can't not talk about aging systems and legacy, which is a word that's often overused. Well, I think they're enabling now the adaptation and addition of some of these new technologies, and AI is the obvious one that I think people are talking about. How they can enable their organizations to use it in a safe and structured manner without being too disruptive.
And I think that's what you're saying, safe, but without being disruptive. And of course, you're talking about new technologies, which obviously is a lovely segue into my next question, which is, what are the emerging and new technologies you are seeing that are impacting the way financial institutions are treating their customers?
Yeah, so I think there's a shift and a much more focus on that digital experience. But I think we've been talking about that for years. I'm sure in many of your interviews over the years, right, digital engagement has been part of it. But I think the thing we're seeing differently now is much more focus on that personalization that is being delivered to the individual. There's so much data that's there to be unlocked by a financial institution. They need to drive the use of that to you at your point of engagement. And so we see a lot more focus on that in order to really influence the experience that you and I want, and I guess my daughter expects now. And I think that's the other challenge, is these younger generations, what they expect as a norm is very different from certainly what I expected or what my parents expected. And so they're having to keep up with that. And we've always talked about those expectations being set by other industries. Financial institutions now are facing it with fintechs coming in, redefining the way data is used, the way data is applied. And of course, we all want immediate response. We want to know whether we can buy this thing. Have we got the car loan? So I think we're seeing a much more focus on unifying the experience, irrespective of the channel, but embedding much more in that automation and using the data that's available.
And using the right data well. And
always a challenge.
So we've touched on data. Earlier you mentioned AI, of course, as
Yes.
an emerging technology. Are you seeing any tangible progress in terms of AI use cases? What are you seeing that's really working?
Yeah, so I think we see a lot of use cases being done. And interestingly, last night at the event we hosted, I was talking with one of our clients who was saying the problem they have is they have too many agents. And so they've got a plethora of agents because they're all being encouraged to use agents. And it's now creating a problem of how do I manage and catalog them all? But also more importantly, which ones are actually adding value to the business? When we've looked at them internally, we've looked at specific examples where, you could apply AI to fix a problem, but it doesn't actually add value. And I think that's really the crux. And so examples we've seen, and we've talked about one here at the event, is our use of AI in collections, where by using AI, you can get a better response from collections activity. So it actually impacts your bottom line. Because we can't help but talk about AI without the impact of the environmental use of energy. And we see lots of commentary about this. So I think it's going to be very important that banks are focusing on the use case. What is the ROI for the investment in AI? We are focusing on that as the work we're doing. A key part of which use cases should we focus on, very much around the ROI of it, because it is such a broad technology. You could use it for so many things, but is it worth it for using? So I think for us particularly, I talked about the example in collections. I think the other example that we're seeing that is of a value is where I'm redefining the experience that is being delivered to the agent who is interacting with the customer, so that they can ask a question that really delves into the volume of data, so they can be prepared for the conversation with the customer. I think that shortens time obviously being money, leads to a more intelligent conversation with the customer, and of course back to, as we've talked about on the digital channel, it's equally important in non-digital channels that they have context, understanding, and they know that customer to build that relationship. And whether that's a call center, a collection agent, or just somebody in a branch, the more they can be empowered with the knowledge of the customer, not just the data, I think that's critical. So they're the sorts of use cases we're seeing, but I think it's going to be imperative going forward that banks make the decision that this is the right use case because it's going to add value, rather than I just could use AI for it, but should I?
And what I'm hearing from you is actually remembering what the business actually does when you find your use case.
Yes, I think that becomes critical, because it's the old adage, right? If all I've got is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. I think in this scenario, particularly, there's an encouragement in organizations to experiment with AI, which is a good thing. But I think you also need to have the structure and control that recognizes fast failure and say, let's stop this because it's not adding value to the business. And those that do add value to the business, focus on and invest more. And I think that's how we're going to see financial institutions be successful with their use of AI.
Thank you, Andrew. That was actually a lovely summary of what's happening on the floor and the discussions you're having. And even hearing about too many agents, that was enlightening. So thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you very much.